Today we have a special guest speaker all the way from New York, Nancy Repko. Welcome. How are you?
Hi, I am good. Just to let you know, though, I'm from Ohio, but I am from way east.
Oh,
Sorry about that.
okay, from Ohio. All right. So I'm so excited to go over this topic of healing from toxic relationships. And Nancy has so much wisdom and insight in this area. So we're so excited to to hear her testimony. So we're gonna dive in. And first, I just want to ask you, Nancy, can you introduce yourself, share a little bit about yourself to the viewers?
Okay, well, I'm Nancy Repko. I have three children. I've been divorced three times. I've been just in and out of toxic relationship after toxic relationship. So now I'm also, because of my situation and the healing that I have gotten, starting a business. Well, actually, it's more of a ministry, but to help women specifically that have dealt with this toxicity in their lives because it's so demeaning and degrading, and it just pulls us out of who we really are meant to be. So,
Let's go in that direction. Will you share how your previous marriages were toxic?
well, I grew up, I'll just back up real quick. Like, I grew up in a home where my father wasn't available. Like, he was, he worked. Not to, I'm not out to blame anybody. I just want to put that out there because, I take responsibility for things that have happened, but that was very hurtful. And so I sought men. Anyway, yeah, I married someone much like my father at the beginning, and he wasn't home a lot. We had three kids together, but he wasn't home, and I was alone. And really, I just felt not heard, not valued again. And, he wasn't there physically. Like, he provided a nice home, he provided things, but I didn't get the emotional support that I was looking for. And then, so just, I lost the value of myself, and I didn't trust myself. So I began to trust other people more than my own thoughts and my own, beliefs. And it really took me down hard. And the thing that I realized that happened probably with each person, and I dated in between too. I mean, I was just a chronic dater, to be honest. But they all said, like, I love
I
you. Like,
actually I want to take a moment and just like hone in what you mentioned about how all of them, the one thing they did have in common was saying I love you early.
mhm.
And my question to you is, did you, when you heard those words, um, did you believe them immediately? Did you think they were being authentic with you? Or did you feel this is very early? I don't know how I feel about this, or where were you at that time?
Well, each one's different. The first, I honestly, I don't remember how early my first one said it, so I can't. I think I was so wanting to hear those words again because I didn't have a man in my, like my father figure type thing. So I wanted to believe it. If it was early, I honestly don't remember. But my second one, I think I believed it because I was like so hurt and so dead inside and felt so devalued that I wanted to hear those words, I love you. So I did believe him. But the last one, I actually even said, I think, like, like, how could you love me? You just met me, and I would literally say things like that. But he would, oh no, I know you're the one for me, or, whatever. And he would just say how much he trusted me. And, that made me feel good. So, like, he would say things in addition to, and it would help me feel that encouraged me to be like, well, of course you love, he loves me. He gave me the keys to his house. Like, if he didn't love me, why would he do that? And stuff like that. And so I kind of put these little spins on things and little questions. And so I don't know if I ever wholeheartedly believed it, but I tried to convince myself of it.
I think that's really an important thing to note that those men, or from what you remember, they said it early. And was that desire there for you? You said yes, you were desiring to hear those words. I think a lot of women do desire that. In the Bible, it even says, um, in scripture, husbands, love your wives. I think that's just a telling of how the Lord designed women, which is to receive love.
Mhm.
And so I think that's an important thing to note. And that's not to say that men do not actually mean what they say if they said it early on in the relationship, but for women to take note that that could be a red flag.
No, just the thing that came to me, like thinking about my story is, like the still small voice, the gut feeling, the intuition, I wholeheartedly believe that was God talking to me and telling me, like, no, something's wrong. But because I wanted it so bad, or I didn't trust myself enough, and I think all of the above, I kind of just ignored it, and it didn't go away. Like, it stayed there. And it was like, he was so, one thing, because I struggled a lot with the divorce, especially in the last one, because I was saved in 2011. And the other ones, I don't consider myself safe, but I was in my last one. And so I tried everything that I can think of to make the marriage work. So it's not like I just gave up, and there was that spiritual, religious confusion. I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but and I would, like the word, God hates divorce, and and you're supposed to forget about things. Well, but those weren't given to me in the right context, and they were, it was a manipulation tool. And God does not want us to forget things. That's more of like when we're first saved, we forget, the past is gone. But when you're in a problematic marriage, you don't just say, oh, okay, I forgot. And it's okay that you did this, that, and the other. Like, it's not okay. And it doesn't mean that. So, and then the divorce, I really struggled with that, because they take one sentence out of the Bible and they make it like God hates divorce. And if you divorce, you're going to hell. One thing he showed me throughout the whole thing, he's like, he's like, did I ordain this? And I was like, no, you did not. I did not ask you. It was, and the other thing I said as our marriage went on was it built on a strong foundation? No, I could say that. And he knew that as well. Like, we cannot say we had, sand. And it showed, because we did everything, counseling, Christian stuff, books, everything, this cruise, and so on. And it just wouldn't work.
You mentioned that he would twist things. Can you give an example or explain what you mean there? And is it in connection with the spiritual confusion that you experienced?
I mean, one of it was, there was a religious piece of, abuse. I had, emotional abuse, spiritual abuse, a little bit of physical abuse. I mean, really pretty much every type of verbal abuse. And, but the twisting, the gaslighting is what did it. And it's really hard to decipher, because especially when they're, the nice ones, the covert, the overt ones, they're meaner. It's easier to pick up, like when someone's being mean. But when they're nice, like, and that's what made it so hard, because it's like he's so nice.
Would you say, was there ever times that the scripture, the Bible, was used out of context to you?
Yeah, that whole thing about forgetting the past, that was something he had said, like, you're supposed to just forget. You're not supposed to, when I do something that upsets you or hurts you, it should just be gone. Forget about it. And again, that I know that isn't the context. I just actually recently learned the context behind it is that's when it talks about us being a new creation. I used to call it sweet talking. That was what he did. He would lavish me with compliments, and it was over the top. And it was just, that was another thing. Like, the last two really lavished me with compliments. And then, they would say that, and I knew it wasn't true. Like, I felt that. And then the next day they would tell me, um, you know, what an idiot I was. Like, I didn't have a college education. So, like, you're stupid because you don't have this. How do you think you're going to be able to do that? And, like, and so their words didn't match
I kind of want to go back a little bit to something you said, which was that to forget about the past and using that um, to just move forward in the relationship and whatever the circumstance was that, brought up that conversation for that kind of response. I think many times that is actually a deflection from his behavior in order to avoid changing that behavior and allowing him to continue repeating that same behavior that was actually addressed and never actually uh, correct me if I'm wrong, but not being accountable for that behavior and using that as a cover to avoid that argument that you would actually have. What are your thoughts?
No, that's exactly. I it took me some time, but I put that together exactly what you're saying, that there was so much deflection. Um, he would he would never he wouldn't bring up things to me typically unless I said something that I didn't, appreciate or whatever. Then all of a sudden he'd point the finger and be like, "Well, you did this and you did that." And it was like, "Well, that's fine. Like, I'm not denying I didn't do things wrong, but you're saying this when I'm talking about something else, so you're completely deflecting the topic." And yeah, and then also, just wanting me to forget so he could continue doing, because through that relationship I said, I made many many amends, and I truly like repented, and I did the best I could to change. And I used to pray to God all the time, like, help me love him like you do. I want to love like you love. And but I didn't get anything near the reciprocation, and realized that was why. Like, he didn't want to give up his old ways, because there was a lie from the beginning that I had found out about early in our relationship, that in the end it was still going on. And if I'd have known that, and it definitely gets excused in the Bible. So that's one of the reasons I was able to let it go.
Listening to you and hearing um, just everything you've said, something that you mentioned was that the gaslighting seemed to have been present in all of those relationships across. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. It just, I think it got worse, or maybe it just, like, I had just recently talked about like the pain of words, and I realized like how important the words are. And when you get twisted and manipulated, and it keeps adding like these stones in your heart. And that's what happened. It kept building up and building up, and I was like, well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. They're all saying this. Maybe I'm wrong. And just completely, from in an unhealthy way, trying to please them and trying to be a good wife, would really try to look at it. And I was sincerely trying to make myself better, with God. Not that I can do that on my own, don't get me wrong. I sought his word to get better, but owned my stuff. And but they would blame me for everything. And I can't take the blame. I mean, it's not all me, like, it takes two.
I think honestly, gaslighting is probably one of the most difficult things for a person to really observe and acknowledge that it's happening to them. If they do not have any experience, if they weren't taught, or and I honestly I think there should be schools of relationships, or just for a healthy relationship. But do you think you were exposed to that kind of thing, gaslighting, growing up?
um I don't know. To be honest, probably. I don't remember a lot of my childhood, so I don't want to say one way or the other.
Yeah.
Um, but it definitely got worse with each relationship. At the beginning, I think it was more like my dad wasn't there and I felt abandoned, and you know, that was kind of it. But then as time went on, they really twisted things, and like I said, the good and the bad. And then they'd be so nice and do something, they'd buy me a gift or whatever. And I lost myself in each one. Like I said, trying to please. And again, in the earlier ones, I wasn't saved, so I wasn't really trying to follow God's word. I was trying to do the right thing, but there's a difference. So in the last one, but with all of them, I was still trying to please them, and I obviously can't. And it took away my heart and my soul. Like I was depleted in each one. And in each one, I was at a bottom where I don't want to say necessarily suicidal, but it was bad. It was empty. I was like a walking, body without a soul. I just felt so empty inside.
Will you please describe your healing journey? What was that like? How long did it take? And in what ways did you change and grow?
My healing journey kind of began when I was saved. It took some time for me to realize that I was making these marriages an idol. It was all through God. It was a healing journey through reading the Bible. It was I found this inner healing modality that I absolutely love, that helped me hear God, and it also helped me break a lot of like soul ties and break um and hear the healing and the love that he had for me. And it was very instrumental in me and my forgiveness of myself and others, especially those that hurt me, because there's a lot of hurt when all this kind of stuff goes on. And part of it was at me, it was like, what's wrong with me? Why do I keep doing this? you know and and just hearing the voice of God and really experiencing it, and being able to let it go. Like I truly was able to let it go. It was just really beautiful. And then I also did a lot of deliverance, which and generational curses, and they kind of go hand in hand. I mean, people don't realize we have generational curses from, I mean, our parents, our grandparents, our great grandparents, it just goes down the line to Adam. Like we really do. And that's valid, and it stops with me. And so I'm really happy about that.
That's
No,
so powerful. I love that. I absolutely love that. It stops with me. That's right. That's
like, oh,
great.
my kids know more.
And you mentioned an inner healing modality. Can you share what that was?
Like God is peace. And so these sessions, they're like so full of peace and love, and because God speaks through our mind. So it is like what comes to your mind. And, a lot of that isn't God. But when, you pray over it and you pray this protection, God speaks and you hear. And it's like a lot of it is like, you release forgiveness, you release whether it's forgiveness for me, forgiveness to them. You share, you kind of like talk it out, like what they did and how they hurt you without literally saying it to their face, but you're saying it out loud, and you're extracting that pain, literally those stones that are in your heart, you're like extracting them out, and you're like, here, God, you take them. Like you told us, you are to take them. I'm giving you my burden, I'm giving you my pain. I don't need to carry it. And it's so freeing. And they've just been really beautiful. So a lot of tears are shed in them, because it really does get to the core issues. And it's not, topical. It's not like, let's stuff it down a little more, or say, okay, I did wrong. All right, I'm good. It's really getting there into the deep wounds and healing them. And
Out of curiosity, is the sessions, are they like a guided session? So there's someone with you to help
mhm.
you along?
When I was doing, having it done with me, there was another person like helping me, like you can just sense where they need to go, like the Holy Spirit guides. So
Describe for me, Nancy, what you were like before versus present day Nancy.
oh, that's a good. Before I was just a people pleaser. I wanted to please everybody, and instead of worrying, and it's that there's a, instead of pleasing myself, and I don't mean it in a selfish way, it's just letting God love me and receiving his love. I wanted to please people, but not even for the right reason. I wanted to please them for their love. So it wasn't a loving way. It wasn't a good reason. Where, I would let anybody in, I would trust anybody, um, which was really strange because I was hurt so much, but yet I would still trust people, especially men. It was odd. And then, But today, like, I'm very, and one big thing I learned too is there's a difference, because I struggled a lot with this, between judgment and discernment. I used to have that was one of those things thrown at me. You're judging me. No, I'm not. I'm discerning. This isn't a good situation, or, relationship for me, or whatever. And it's not saying you're bad, I don't like you. It's saying it's just not healthy. I have that discernment today, and I protect my heart, like the Bible tells us, guard our heart, and it's through God and His Word, instead of me like trying to put up this armor and pushing people away in all the wrong ways and hurting them and hurting me. So I have much healthier relationships, and I have freedom in my heart. And I really do, like, I look forward to the next day, and I can't say, I have joy today, and I don't know if it's coming out, but that's something. It's like I never had joy, never, that I remember. So to experience any bit of joy is amazing. And I do have a joy today that I've never had before. And it is from the healing that I've had, and I don't hate, there's no hate, I don't hate the men. I don't hate myself. I just made mistakes, and I learned, and I moved on.
Wow, that is so powerful, so powerful. Thank you for sharing that. And how, I would like to jump to this question. How did you switch roles from, and maybe forgive me, you probably answered that with the healing, but how did you switch roles to being a decision maker, a leader that now has standards, has boundaries, who is healed? Like, how did you do that shift?
It's a good question. That, was a slow shift. It was happening in my marriage slowly, and I would take a step. It was one of those two-step forwards, one step back, or maybe the other way around. But but I was doing it. But once I separated, for me, that was really when I was able to do it, because then I began to say, like, I was listening to that inner voice that I spoke of earlier, that I know is God, my intuition. And I was like, all right, and I've known this before. It's like, I know that voice is there to protect me, and I'm going to listen to it, and I'm going to do what I sense that it's telling me to do. And I did. And I got confidence that I didn't have before, by listening and not listening to any other, that's why, the people, that's why the separation was so good, because I got all that voice stuff out of my head, and it was just me and God. And I was able to hear His voice and do what He said, and things worked out, and I was able, in discerning bad relationships. I mean, I don't know, like, it's God's grace. I mean, it's not me, it's Him, but it was just allowing Him to direct me and guide me. And I guess that's a humility, that's a surrender that I didn't have before. It was like, I'm going to do this before, but now I'm like, no, I give it to God, and he'll direct me, He'll guide me. And He has, and have I done that perfectly? No, but you know what? It hasn't, I might have stumbled and fallen a little bit, but it's good. He's gracious and loving and forgiving.
That's so good. Thank you. And what would you say to someone who is struggling right now in their healing journey after uh, exiting a toxic relationship or even a toxic marriage?
I think it's really important to get with God, to find a safe place. Whether you have to separate or not, that would be completely up to you, but make sure you have a place where you can go and you can really seek His love. I think the inner healing and deliverance is a great thing, because you really learn to decipher the Lord, I can't talk, the God's voice. And so I do suggest that. And a lot of people, a little freaked out by it, but it's the most beautiful, gentle, loving practice I've ever been through. Um, and then, I mean, just a lot of what I think I did, it's just so helpful, the deliverance, the Bible, getting the word. I believe Proverbs, great place to go. That way you can learn, like, what does God say a fool is? Write that down. Are you experiencing that? Are you some of that? Like, some of that was me, to be honest. I'll be quite frank. Like, it's not all the guy, it was me. And that's the problem in these toxic relationships. We become what we don't like. And that was another reason why I had to get away from it. Anyway, so yeah, breaking those unhealthy soul ties, and I think forgiveness is huge. We need to forgive ourselves and our spouse or whoever it is, the toxic person.
What would you say are some good practical tools someone can do for themselves to heal? And also, as a follow-up, where can they go for healing and deliverance?
Well, great that you asked because I actually, that's what I'm working on. I'm starting my own, it's a ministry. So it's pay as you feel need, you can, but it's called Heart to Heart Restored. And it's helping people go through like biblical application, the healing and deliverance, and going through, the biblical like proverbs and things like that, and really learning how to apply it and hear God's voice.
Well, thank you so much, Nancy. And tell us, where can people find you online?
Okay, yeah, thank you. I am on Facebook and Instagram. I have the same handle. It's Nancy Repko, Repko 003. YouTube is heart number two heart dot restored. And then I am working on a website called heart with the number two heart restored.org. So
Okay,
that's going to be coming out soon. So yeah, I'm excited to get that rolling.
sounds exciting. So what I'm going to do for everyone, put those links below so that way you can follow, like, and subscribe. Thank you so much, Nancy, for your testimony and for your time today. It's been a blessing.
Oh, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you asking, and you're such a blessing.